Hello, and welcome to Invitation to a Conversation. I'm Pamela Bailey. We're continuing my series with Black History Month, and today I bring to you Judge Orion Douglas Sr. Orion L. Douglas Sr. was born on February 22nd, 1947 in Savannah, Georgia. His parents were both longtime educators in the Chatham County school system, and he received his primary and secondary education in the Catholic parochial schools of that city. In 1964, Douglas received his high school diploma from St. Pius X High School in Savannah, Georgia. And in that same year, he was awarded a 4-year athletic scholarship to attend the College of the Holy Cross in Worcestershire, Massachusetts. While at Holy Cross, Douglas majored in philosophy and received his A.B. degree in 1968. In that same year, he was accepted and enrolled into Washington University Law School in St. Louis, Missouri. In 1971, he received his Juris Doctorate degree from that institution. After graduating from Washington University, Douglas was admitted to the state bars of Missouri and Georgia in 1973. After serving as a law intern for the St. Louis Legal Aid Society and subsequently assistant circuit attorney for the city of St. Louis, Douglas returned to his home state of Georgia in 1974. After a brief stint at associate counsel for the law firm of Hill, Jones, and Farrington in Atlanta, Georgia, Douglas returned to coastal Georgia and moved to St. Simon's Island in November 1974. Where he practiced law in the Glenn County community and throughout Southeast Georgia as a general practice trial lawyer for 20 years. In 1981, Douglas was appointed by the Brunswick City Council to the position of judge of the Municipal Court. He served in that capacity for 12 years until November 1992, when he was elected in a multi-candidate county-wide race to the position of judge of the State Court of Glenn County. Judge Douglas served 5 terms in that position and after 20 years retired as chief judge and assumed senior judge status. Judge Douglas is married to the former Shirley Hill of Valdosta, Georgia, and to this 45-year union, they have been blessed with the birth of 3 children, Orion Jr., a special child now deceased, Omar, a 2004 graduate of the College of the Holy Cross, and Odette, a 2011 graduate of the College of the Holy Cross and a 2014 graduate of Florida Coastal School of Law, where she received her Juris Doctorate degree. Douglas, the grandson of a Presbyterian minister, is a member of the Brunswick Second Presbyterian Church, USA, where he is an elder, sings in the choir, and serves as the minister of music. He has served on the executive board of the Okefenokee Council of the Boy Scouts of America and is a charter member of the 14 Black Men of Glenn Incorporated. He also has served as chairman of the Communities in Schools of Glenn, a grassroots organization which serves and supports the public schools of Glenn County, Georgia. Judge Douglas has been appointed to several special commissions by the Georgia Supreme Court and the governor of Georgia. He is past president of the Council of State Court Judges for the state of Georgia and was once nominated to the governor's shortlist to fill a vacancy on the Georgia Court of Appeals until his nomination was withdrawn at his request. Judge Douglas presently serve on various commercial and nonprofit boards of directors, and in 2004, he was specially honored by his alma mater, Washington University Law School, where he was inducted as an honorary initiated into the university's Order of the Coast. In 2006, he was awarded a Distinguished Law Alumni Award by Washington University for that year, and in June 2007, he was awarded the Alfred W. Jones Senior Man of the Year Award by the Brunswick Glenn County Chamber of Commerce. In 2010, the judicial section of the Gate City Bar Association presented Judge Douglas with the Justice Robert A. Benham Legacy Award for career contribution to the state of the judiciary in Georgia. And in 2012, he was awarded the Liberty Bell Award for dedicated service to the rule of law and the Glenn County community by the Glenn County Board Association. In October of that same year, he was awarded the 2012 Image Award by the Glenn County NAACP and was honored by the Georgia State House of Representatives with a resolution honoring his 20 years of service as judge of the State Court of Glenn County. In 2013, Judge Douglas was appointed by Governor Nathan Deal Sr., judge of the State Court of Glenn County for life. And in June 2014, Judge Douglas was recognized and honored by the State Bar of Georgia for his contribution as an attorney in the civil rights movement and struggle for equality and integration of African-American citizens in Georgia. His name, along with other similarly honored participants, has been placed on display at the Center of Civil and Human Rights in the State Bar of Georgia Law Museum. In 2017, the trial lawyer's DUI manual was dedicated to Judge Douglas for his fairness and impartiality displayed during his career on the bench. In 2018, he was awarded his college's highest alumni recognition in the Hock Signal Award for distinguished, dedicated, and long-serving momentous service to the college. And now I introduce you, Judge Orion Douglas Sr. How you doing, Judge Douglas?
Hello, Pamela. How are you doing? And I'm happy to be here and happy to see you.
Thank you for accepting my invitation to a conversation, a very distinguished bio. It took up a lot of time, but we're going to get through this real quick. I have some questions for you for this conversation, and you could just give me 2 minutes on each one. We can get through this through our time.
Sure.
But to start off our conversation, I would like to know what kind of experience did you experience coming up that made you just decide to become a lawyer?
Oh, well, I grew up in the city of Savannah, as you indicated. And at the time I grew up, we were still under the Jim Crow laws. So segregation and all that was very much in force. Really, all the way through the time I finished high school, I grew up in a segregated system. My father finished Morehouse College in the 30s, and he always wanted to be a lawyer. But because he was Black, he was not accepted by any of the law schools. So I sort of grew up inheriting my dad's dream to be a lawyer. And from there, I got inspired. I might say my mom, being shrewd about it, at the age of 12, gave me a book to read called The Final Verdict by Adela Rogers St. John's. And it's a story of her father, who was a trial lawyer throughout the country. Well, that book, after reading it, further inspired me to make me want to be a lawyer like that. So behind my dad's dream and the reading of that book, I got committed to practicing law.
That is so beautiful. And I know your father was proud of you taking on that journey.
Absolutely.
Yes. So are you saying real quickly is that the only way that we weren't even accepted to go to college to be a lawyer? So the only way we could go to college, did we have to have some type of athletic scholarship?
Well, for college, that's how I got there. But for example, the college I went on a basketball scholarship. By the way, we're the 1964 state champions of Georgia, like high school.
Okay.
But when I got to the college, there was only one other African-American in the whole college. So it's not like it is today where we have African-American kids throughout the University of Georgia throughout. In those days, very few African-Americans went to Division I schools. If you didn't go to a historically Black college, you probably didn't go to college at all.
So, okay. So was your college a historically Black college?
No, my college is a historically white college. It's in Massachusetts. And it was basketball. They were recruiting and I played basketball. And it was a Catholic college. And my high school was a Catholic high school, St. Pius X. By the way, your Supreme Court Justice, Clarence Thomas, went to the same high school I went to. And he also followed me at Holy Cross College when I went there.
Oh.
So we were all channeled through the same tube, so to speak, except at the other end, we came out a little different.
I won't ask you about that.
Yeah, we won't go there.
Is law school divided in specific law, or does one study all types of law and then decide which part of the law they want to go into, like family law, criminal law, and so forth?
It's sort of like college. When you go to college, you get a bachelor's degree, and it could be in science or the arts. And then you could decide to go into medicine or teaching or whatever in graduate school. When you go to law school, you are seeking the Juris Doctorate degree, JD degree. And with that degree, you then can have to pass certain state bar exams to pass. Once you pass your bar exams, then you can select what specialty you choose to go into. I sort of went into, if you look at the medical profession, they would call us general practitioners. And I was a GP for law, which means I did it all, from writing wills to trying criminal cases to trying whatever walked in the door where you had a legal problem. I was qualified to do so. As time went on, I began to specialize more by selecting different kinds of cases. But in law school, you get the generic degree, the Juris Doctorate. Just like in college, you would get a bachelor's degree. And then you can select your specialty after you get out of school.
Oh, okay. So you segue into some of the questions that I was going to ask you. Very good. Okay, what was it like to experience working with the St. Louis Legal Aid Society as a law intern?
It was really a beautiful experience, and it's different from what those encounter today. When I graduated from law school in 1971, legal aid had sort of started as an advanced forward advocating organizations, or they filed suit in housing discrimination, employment discriminations. And this was during the time Richard Nixon was the president of the United States. Once he got elected president, he changed the nature of legal aid, because legal aid is a nonprofit governmental institute. And put restraints on us. We could no longer be advocates like that. But in the first years, we were the sword's edge. We were challenging all kinds of situations across the country. It was a major civil rights era at that time. Now, King was assassinated in '68. Panther Party was ruling. Kids were in the street. Vietnam. Matter of fact, we had a motto: trust nobody over 30 years old. If you're over 30, we didn't trust you. So that was a really exciting time. But then when Nixon got into office, he actually changed the nature of legal aid, dumbed it down, and made it not as potent as it is today.
But a lot of people still use legal aid for certain things, but they're not as strong as they used to be.
We used to challenge voting rights and things of that nature, but people need the legal aid today. For people who cannot retain lawyers, they can find themselves in situations where, because they didn't have a lawyer, a major injustice was incurred. So it's not as big and as vibrant as it used to be, but it's still very much necessary.
There are certain duties throughout being a lawyer. And one of them, you said you were an assistant circuit attorney. What's the duties of the assistant circuit attorney?
Circuit attorney in St. Louis is like the district attorney here in Brunswick. And I was an assistant district attorney, but in St. Louis, they call circuit attorney. I was a prosecutor.
Okay.
That's what I did.
Okay.
And so I worked in the circuit attorney's office for about a year or so, which gave me invaluable criminal trial experience. Really, that's when my internship, that's what qualified me and certified me to practice criminal law, of which I did a lot of criminal practice during my 20 years when I was practicing. But it's the same as being an assistant district attorney, the assistant circuit attorney.
And what's the difference between an assistant circuit attorney and an associate counsel?
Associate counsel usually applies to corporations and something of that nature. I'll give you an example of the assistant district attorney. You know, Jackie Johnson in Glenn County was, and she was challenged by her assistant district attorney, Keith Higgins.
Okay.
And he's the one that defeated his boss to take over the job as district attorney. So assistant circuit attorney is like an assistant DA.
Okay.
Where you serve at the pleasure of the district attorney.
And from you traveling so much from the various places that you went to college and then started practicing law, what made you decide to settle back in Brunswick, Georgia to practice law?
Well, this was during a period of time when all the kids of my generation, when we went to high school and all, when you graduated from high school, being in the segregated South, all of us planned to leave the South.
Mm-hmm.
We were not going to stay down there. Matter of fact, when I went to college for 4 years, we would ride the Silver Media train that went from Miami all the way up to Boston. And you would see Black kids getting on the train from Florida, Miami, and all, going to Howard University in DC and going up north.
Wow.
It was fun. You know, we had,
wow.
It was a midnight train, but we all vowed to go north. But when I got to New England and when I lived in the Midwest, I realized that prejudice and bigotry was there just as strong as it was down south. The only difference is they didn't speak it.
Yes.
Down south, they put up the sign and told us.
Yes.
But I realized that there was not much difference. Then in 1972 or 73, Maynard Jackson was elected mayor of Atlanta, Georgia. And that's the first time I saw a break in the South for African Americans. So after experiencing New England and St. Louis, I decided just to go back home and see what it was like. So I was hired by a law firm in Atlanta, and that's why I returned to the South, because I realized the same prejudice was everywhere, except it was showing itself in a different face.
And you were under under Maynard Jackson as mayor of Atlanta, Georgia.
Well, it was a law firm that worked in the city of Atlanta. And we associated with the city in various projects. Okay. But it was a Black law firm, so I enjoyed that. Okay.
What is municipal court?
Municipal court is your city court.
Okay.
And so here in Glenn County, the city of Brunswick is the county seat. It is a sovereign government itself. And you will recall over the years, they always tried to persuade us to consolidate. If we consolidated, we would surrender the sovereignty of our city. So we've always opposed it. And by it being a sovereign city, it appointed its own court. So it had a municipal court. But the municipal court did not have the jurisdictions that I have now. There was no jury trials. There were certain cases, only misdemeanors could be heard, no civil cases. But the city had its own municipal court. And that's where I started when they appointed me to the bench.
Okay. I tell you, I love doing this show because I learned so much, and I break these things down to educate me for what things I already know and for the audience to learn and understand.
And you do a great job too.
Thank you. And to introduce people that they may not recognize of what they have done in the community. So what is state court? And you said that you did 5 terms. So does that mean each term was 4 years?
That's correct. Yes, yeah. I served 5 terms, which was 20 years. But the state court is like your superior court, except for 2 major points. One, we do not take felony criminal cases. So the Arbery case and all, that would not have come to me. Okay. That's felony criminal. The other thing is the state court doesn't have what you call equity jurisdiction, which means if you wanted to sue the city of Brunswick to stop them from doing something, that requires equity powers. But those powers go to the Superior Court. Everything else is the same. If you're in the fender bender, if you had a major truck accident case or any kind of other cases, we have what you call concurrent jurisdictions. Lawyers can choose to file it in my court, or they can choose to file it in the Superior Court. Oftentimes they choose my court because the Superior Court is so overloaded, say with divorces and things, it takes a lot of years for it to go through. But in my court, if you file the civil case, you can really get that case processed through a lot quicker because we have a lighter docket.
Lighter docket. Oh, okay. And the duties between chief judge and senior, and what is the duties of a chief judge and the duties of a senior judge?
Okay. What you call the chief judge is the presiding judge of the court. That's where the buck stops. That's the person responsible for the total operation of the state courts, from setting jury trials to actually trying the jury cases and all. Senior judges, after you have served, 20 years, you can petition the state, and the governor, after doing his investigations, as doing their due diligence, they appointed me senior judge for the rest of my life. I do not have to run for re-election.
Oh.
The first 4 years as chief judge, every 4 years, you had to put yourself up for re-election, and you could be challenged by any other attorney and things like that. I was successful in all 5 of those terms. Honestly speaking, after the first term, not many people challenged me. In any event, I went through a 5-election cycle. Now I do not have to seek re-election at all. I am a senior judge for the rest of my life, and I'm qualified to serve in any county in Georgia. For example, I preside in Savannah now, and I'm presiding in Waycross, Darien, where other judges need assistance in dealing with their backlog. And I do specialize in major complicated cases where we have one judge serving, say in McIntosh, Judge Bolin. She cannot really conduct major litigation like that takes years and still keep the court operational. So I'm sort of like a gunslinger. I would take that case and take it through. I used to have a motto, have gavel, will travel.
I know that's right.
Yeah.
Which one of those did you enjoy the most doing?
Senior judge, being a senior judge. What I'm doing now is what I want to do. I set my own calendar. I got very, very interesting cases. I do help judges on their traffic docket and all that, but I have more control of my time, and my caseload is very interesting, things I really enjoy doing.
When you were explaining Chief Judge, is that similar to like administration work, like setting the dockets and doing all
Yeah,
of
you're
that?
responsible for the court, the administration of the court, the bailiffs, and scheduling of the trials, the supplies. We have our own jury room, our own security. You're in charge of that court. If something goes wrong, the buck falls with you.
Then what is the court, excuse me, what is the Court of Appeals?
Court of Appeals, where if you disagree with what I did at state court, Superior Court has no jurisdiction over the state court. We're separate courts. So you would have to take your appeal to the first level, which is the Georgia Court of Appeals. So you would appeal from me, from my court to the Court of Appeals, or if you were upset with a verdict or something in the Superior Court, you go to the Court of Appeals, which is now a 15-judge court that reviews the actions of the trial judge. If you're not satisfied with the Court of Appeals rulings, then the next step you would apply to the Georgia Supreme Court, which has jurisdictions over the rulings of the Court of Appeals. The Court of Appeals has rulings over my court, the trial courts, or the superior courts. It's a tier by which you can appeal results and get a final resolution.
Okay. It's like a stair step. You got to start here and go all the way up. And one of the most interesting positions you had was attorney for the civil rights movement and struggle for equality and integration of African-American citizens in Georgia. Let's talk about that for a second. How exciting was that, and how long did you work in that particular position?
Well, that's really the main reason I was ready to return to the South, because Jim Crow ran me out along with so many others. But this was an intense time. We were having all kinds of litigations going on here, jury trials and all, and Black lawyers was needed during that civil rights period. So I, along with a lot of my colleagues, chose to set aside lucrative jobs in the North and return to the South in Mississippi and in Alabama and here in Georgia, and file cases in court. And I was very active in the civil rights movement from Douglas, Georgia to Valdosta. We worked with the ACLU. In Brunswick, we had a lot to do with Reedsville Prison and finally getting that changed around. If you know anything about St. Simon's, the little community of Jewtown was being challenged. We filed suits based on a 1483 statute of the 13th Amendment, due process of law. African-American communities was being ignored. And so we challenged them in the federal court. And I did it for 20 years. And at the end of 20 years, they recognized our service, just me along with other trial lawyers. They came here for the purpose of bringing justice to the Black communities, and particularly in the rural South, not the major cities where they were severely underrepresented.
Mm. And do you think that the civil rights movement and the struggle for equality and integration of African Americans, is it still slow changing the laws? Have the laws been changed, or are they looking to change them? How has it progressed over the years since you've been working for them?
We won. Now we just got to figure out a way of exposing the results. But it's not so much the changing of the law, it was enforcing the law equally.
Mm-hmm.
And so there were major legislation. The Civil Rights Act was passed when I was a senior in high school in 1964. So, and the law was on the book. The Supreme Court desegregated schools in 1954, but they did nothing. They just ignored it. So as trial lawyers, we got involved and we litigated the force to change.
Mm-hmm.
So the laws are now more fairly being enforced, but it's now dependent on the institutional racisms that are not individuals so much now as the institutions as it is applied to individuals. You got two concepts in constitutional law. A thing could be unconstitutional in fact, or a thing could be unconstitutional as applied. In African American community, it's always as applied. For example, look at the difference between Breonna Taylor and the lady in Texas that got 2 years for killing.
Yes.
The law was there. The law is constitutional, but when it was applied in a discriminatory fashion. So where we are now is challenging the way that law is being applied. And I am so proud of Glenn County and what it did during the Arbery case. I'm getting comments from people all across the country, proud of what the community did. They came together and they applied the law as if the person that was sitting there was either black or white. It did not matter. They applied the law as the facts dictated. And I'm very proud of my county for how we handled the situation.
And I'm so proud of our county and our city of how they applied it also, because a lot of people were looking for riots and wondering where the mayor and everybody was in the background, but you don't have to always see those people to understand what they are doing. But to not have it violent, burnt down, I think we did good, and we were the template of how you can have such a high profile case and not be destructive behind it.
It's the template for all Americans.
Yes.
All America.
Your name placed on display at the Center for Civil and Human Rights and the State Bar of Georgia Law Museum. How awesome is that? Where is the Law Museum at?
It's in Atlanta. It's in Atlanta, down Peachtree, around that area. And it's a big, tall, huge, iconic building. And I'm sort of proud kind of to be on the wall there. That's a significant recognition.
Yeah.
It was unsolicited. They brought it to me, and I'm proud. I'm very proud of it.
I want to go back because I was thinking about a question I was going to ask you when we were talking about the civil rights law. And so now, because you said we have to, we did the individual laws, but the racism did start institutionally, right? And that was the biggest bear that you had to deal with. And so we're just now getting to that surface of it. You know what I'm saying? Because I was reading the other day where the federal housing was the one who started the redlining. So it's us now that we have to change the laws that were applied to us.
Exactly.
To make it equal across the board. The state of African American during your college days, from Savannah, Georgia to Massachusetts to St. Louis, Missouri to Atlanta and back to Brunswick, Georgia and St. Thomas Island. It sounds like that it was a little, how they call it, about the Great Migration, because you said the way they came up from Florida and rode the trains up north. Is that what was really going on within the city?
We were everyone that finished high school that had any kind of ambition, or when I was growing up, knew that we had to leave the South. But what happened was in the 70s, a re-migration began. I was part of the first wave of African Americans that professionally was returning to the South. We had all left. And a lot of that depended about what happened in Atlanta. For the first time in this country, we saw a Black man elected mayor in the South. And so that's what inspired me to return back home and try it here. Bear in mind that at that time I was just 22 years old. So I'm not sure what life had to offer for me. But now we are returning in big numbers from these northern areas and returning to the South. And it started in the early 70s when we began to come back down here. So, and it has made a big change. It's made a big change. The South is now our bastion of strength in the country. Whereas prior to that, maybe New England or California was sensitive to the Black most, but not the South.
Let's speak a little about African-American lawyers. Are African-American lawyers increasing? Is it stagnant? Is it decreasing? How do you see the future of African-American lawyers?
Oh, it's definitely increased tremendously. When I finished law school, if I remember correctly, there were only 600 Black lawyers in the entire country.
No.
Savannah had one. Atlanta had a couple of them, but these major cities had very few. Now we really do have a significant number of African. Now the University of Georgia is bringing them in. The state law schools are allowed African Americans to go to law school. So it has increased tremendously. And the biggest change of all, the majority of the Black lawyers now are Black females. They are the ones, they really are. We got, Kajana is going on the Supreme Court and all there.
Yes.
But our sisters picked up the mantle of getting educated, going to college, excelling, going to law school. So truly the African-American female is further along the educational route than the male. So the majority of them coming out now are Black lawyers, Black women lawyers.
And I would think so, because so long we were at home raising the children, raising the kids, and we were seeing everything going on now. And now that we have a voice, we can apply what we've been seeing, how we've been suppressing it, and what we would like to see the change to be and fight for it.
Remember, it was a Black female that originally headed up the Armad prosecution.
Yes.
A Black woman out of DeKalb County. Some kind of way she left, but she was the one that was initiating the push. So
wow.
The sisters are represented. Let's put it that way.
Okay, we have about 20 minutes to go. Tell me a couple of minutes about the laws for African Americans. Are they changing? They still stagnant? Are they slowly moving along, or where we stand right now?
The laws are sufficient. It's the application of the law. So African Americans don't necessarily need a specific law to do such and such, but how it's applied. For example, the 3 strikes and you're outlaw. Well, that applies to a white person that might have committed a 3rd offense, or a Black person, but it's unduly oppressive on African Americans. The marijuana laws. A high school kid gets arrested at 17 or 18 years old for pot. That stays on him for the rest of his life. He tries to apply for a job or trying to move forward. That's on his record.
For the rest of his life?
Rest of his life. Your record's gonna be with you for the rest of your life. You may think it's expunged after 10 years, but through a federal check, you can go all the way back to the time you were in high school. So it's there, and it can be revealed. Now the issue is, does an employer use that against you universally? Because you are African American, he uses that as an excuse, okay? But it's supposed to apply equally to white and Black, but it's not applied the same. And the purpose of that, for example, take the law against crack cocaine. People are getting arrested in the Black community for crack cocaine, but cocaine, straight up, the powder, was exploited all across the country, where white folks usually specialize in, and got minimum sentences. But an addict in the streets of Philadelphia that's smoking crack could be sent off for 20 or 30 years. Now, it's the same substance, cocaine. One is powder and one is not. But by creating a special law that focused on the crack part, it focused on the Black community.
So,
And so a white kid in an affluent community getting arrested for powdered cocaine is a slap on the wrist. A black kid in the ghetto, he gets his life marked off forever.
I never heard the law explained like that before. The law is applied, but it's who it's applied to and for.
Exactly.
Especially like Kyle Rittenhouse,
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect
Perfect example.
So what you're saying is we basically don't have to change the law for African Americans. We just need to apply the law that's here already and do it equally for us. I love it. Okay. Exactly. Okay. All right. We're down to 15 minutes. Quickly explain in 2 minutes the African American prison system. Where are we at with the prison system? Do you think the laws need to be changed? Are they need to be thrown out and start all over again? Where are we at with that?
Well, I got a twofold response to that one. Because I am a judge. In a major sense, the African American male dropped the ball. Our young brothers are not pursuing an education as intensely as our young sisters. I mean, they're not appreciating school. I remember once Oprah Winfrey donated a huge sum of money to a school in Africa for African American girls. And the reporter asked her, why are you pouring all these millions in Africa? Why don't you pour it here in America? She says, because all Black kids want are Air Jordans, bracelets, gold. They don't seek an education. In America, if you're Black, you come from Jamaica or West Indies, you go to school, you graduate, you educate, you're setting up business, but right down the street from that school are African-American boys not even going to school, not getting what the type of training and education they need. So there's no motivation like it is. So I can't put all of that on the system. I don't put it on the kids. I put it on my generation. For some reason, we did not install in our young boys the importance of education and not a fancy pair of sneakers or some FUBU shirt or something that was meaningless. But what was most important was education. What saves us is the Black female. She pursued the education. Is more African-American women in college than African-American men. And they are graduating and they're going into the workforce. They're becoming CEOs of countries. And our young brothers, a lot of us have not gotten it together.
And that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's on us. We cannot put that on white America. If you come from Jamaica, the West Indies, Nigeria, you come to this country, you matriculate through the system wonderfully, and you do well. We cannot put that on white America. It's on us.
Judge Douglas, who inspires you?
Today? No, I'm too old to be inspired. The people that inspire me now are dead.
You know what? Judge Douglas. They could be dead. They could be dead or alive. They could be dead or alive.
Well, then for that, Thurgood Marshall. Yeah. As a kid growing up, he was my idol. He is the one that argued the Brown case.
Yes.
Of course that. And the other icons, King and Fred Hampton, who's killed in Chicago.
Yes.
You don't know.
Yes.
You don't know
Black Panther.
Yeah, the past civil rights. They suffered and they died. They did not receive the fruits. As they told Martin, you're not going to cross over into the promised land, but I'll show it to you. We crossed over. We saw the promised land, but the ones that brought us to the border, they died. They didn't get a chance to see it, so they inspire me too. And my mom and my dad.
What is your favorite? Okay, excuse me.
I said they educated us the hard way, the old school of knocks.
They'll whip your butt. You act up if you want to.
You got it right. I didn't want to say that officially. I play the piano today because my mom whooped my butt.
What is your favorite scripture, phrase, or testimony?
I lift up my eyes into the hill from whence cometh my help. My help coming from the Lord thy God that made heaven and earth. That's where all is good. In Latin, we call it the summa bonum, the greatest good. It comes from one source, the absolute good. And That's to win. I lift up my eyes into the hills. That's where my strength and all goodness comes from.
We have one thing in common. We are both recipients of Catholic parochial schools.
Yeah,
I went
yeah.
to Philadelphia parochial Catholic school.
Oh, listen, Philly produced some powerful St. Joseph's.
Yeah.
I
I went to
used to hang
West
out with
Catholic
friends at St.
Girls.
Joseph's.
Went to West Catholic Girls, transferred to
Oh, okay.
St. Carthage. Yes.
But they made a difference. They made a difference.
Yes.
They made a difference.
We made it through. The last question, wisdom or advice to end this conversation?
Wisdom will come to you with experience, whether you like it or not.
Oh, yes.
You will wake up and you will be wise, whether you like it or not.
Mm.
So you think you go do it your way, it's gonna come. So trust in the Lord and do the best you can, but whether you like it or not, you go see the real writings and listen to the old folks. They know what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Judge Douglas. Thank you, everyone, for listening or viewing Invitation to a Conversation. Please go to my YouTube channel and subscribe to it and watch my other videos. Thank you. God bless you and have a wonderful weekend.
And thank you for the service you render, Pam.